The vanishing, the galactic music. Council chamber floated in the dark. Space between star systems, it was a massive structure built from crystal and metal large enough to hold representatives from thousands of worlds. Today the Great Hall was nearly empty. Only 32 delegates had bothered to attend the emergency session. Ambassador Zelith of the Korvox Union stood at the speaking platform. Her silver skin reflected the dim lights of the chamber. She had 6 arms, and each one held a data tablet filled with information that most of the galaxy refused to acknowledge. Her 3 eyes scanned the sparse audience with disappointment. 50 years had passed since the greatest military force in known space had simply vanished, yet barely anyone cared anymore. The Draconian Armada had been unstoppable. For 200 years they had conquered world after world. Their warriors stood 3 m tall with scales harder than most armor plating. Their technology was generations ahead of anyone else. They had enslaved over 400 civilizations. Every species in the galaxy had feared them. Then in a single day they ceased to exist. Zelith activated the holographic display. Small yellow star appeared, floating in the center of the chamber. This is Sol, she announced, her voice carrying through the vast space. An insignificant star in a remote sector. 50 years ago, the Draconians decided to conquer the 3rd planet in the system. They called it Earth. A blue and green world materialized in the display. It looked peaceful, covered mostly in water with clouds drifting across its surface. It seemed harmless, almost inviting. The humans who lived there were primitive. Zelith continued. They had barely reached their own moon. Their weapons were crude. Their ships could not even leave their own solar system. By every measurement, they should have been easy prey. She changed the image. Now it showed a fleet so vast it blocked out the stars. Thousands upon thousands of warships, each one capable of destroying a city with a single shot. Supreme Commander Thrax brought 15,000 vessels, 100 million soldiers. It was the largest invasion force the Draconians had ever assembled. An older delegate from the Finnish collective raised a tentacle. Ambassador, we all know this history. The Armada disappeared. The Draconian Empire collapsed from internal strife. This mystery is half a century old. Why resurrected now? Zelith had expected this response. She nodded slowly. Because I found something 3 months ago while researching in the abandoned Draconian archives on Zendro and LT Unk and GT Prime. I discovered a sealed vault. The encryption was military grade, designed to last forever. It took me weeks to break through. She pressed the control on her tablet. The pleasant image of Earth vanished, replaced by static and darkness. Then a voice emerged from the chaos. It was deep and commanding, but underneath the authority was something else, something that made several delegates lean forward in their seats. It was fear. The voice belonged to Commander Thrax himself. Day 1 of the invasion, we entered orbit without resistance. The humans detected us but could do nothing. Their primitive missiles bounced off our shields. We deployed the first wave, 10 million soldiers. The conquest should be complete within hours. The recording cut out briefly, then resumed. The time stamp showed it was 6 hours later. Something is wrong. The first wave has gone silent. All of them. We sent probes to their last known positions. Found nothing. No bodies, no wreckage, just Empty streets and buildings, deploying. Second wave with full scanner support. Another gap, 12 hours had passed. Second wave is gone, 20 million soldiers. Vanished, not killed, vanished scanners. Show nothing, no heat signatures, no weapons fire, no struggle, they simply stopped existing. I am pulling all forces back to orbit, we will bombard the planet from space. Thrax's voice had changed, the confidence was gone. The recording jumped forward again, 24 hours since the invasion began. Bombardment did nothing, we reduced 3 of their cities to ash, but our soldiers are still disappearing. Now it is happening on the ships. Crew members report seeing things in the corridors, shapes that should not exist, shadows that move against the light. I have ordered all personnel to remain in groups of 10 or more. It is not helping. Static filled the chamber, then Thrax's voice returned, barely a whisper. It is in my command ship. I can hear it in the walls. It does not make sense. Our sensors show nothing. Our weapons cannot target it, but I can hear it breathing. I can feel it watching. This was not the humans. They are as terrified as we are. Something else lives on that world. Something that was waiting for us. Final part of the recording made several delegates gasp. There was a sound like tearing metal, then screaming, not just Thraz, but hundreds of voices all crying out at once, then silence, complete and absolute silence. Zelith let the quiet stretch for a long moment before she spoke again. That was the last transmission from the Draconian Armada. After that, nothing. No distress calls, no escape pods, no survivors. 15,000 ships and 100 million soldiers simply ceased to exist. A young delegate from the Pars Dominion stood up. This proves nothing. Ambassador, could be a fabrication. Perhaps the Draconians faked their own defeat to hide some other failure. Perhaps there was a weapon malfunction that destroyed their fleet, and this recording was created to cover up their incompetence. Zelith had anticipated this argument as well. Then explain the probe data, she said, bringing up a new display. It showed sensor readings from dozens of different sources, all pointing toward Earth's solar system. For 50 years, every species that has sent an unmanned probe near Earth has lost it, not destroyed. Lost, the probe simply stopped transmitting. No debris, no error messages. They enter the system and vanish. She highlighted several entries. The Vorlon technocracy sent 12 probes. Gone. The Eldred Communion sent 8. Gone. Even our own Korvax Union sent 3 scientific vessels 20 years ago. They crossed into Earth's solar system, and we never heard from them again. Chamber fell silent. Even the skeptical delegates seemed troubled now. I am proposing that we strengthen the quarantine around Earth, Zelith said. Firmly make it absolute. No ships, no probes, no exceptions. Whatever exists on that world, we must ensure it stays there. The vote was called. Zelith watched as the numbers appeared on the display. In favor 15 against 17. The motion failed. The Speaker of the Council, a being made of crystallized energy, announced the result in a voice like chimes. The motion is rejected. Current advisory quarantine will remain in place. This session is concluded. As the delegates began to leave, Zelith remained at the platform, staring at the holographic image of Earth that still rotated slowly in the display. Such a small world to hold such dark secrets. One delegate approached her as the others filed out. he was from a species Zelith did not recognize, with gray fur, covering his body and eyes that were completely black like pools of oil. "You are wasting your time, Ambassador," he said quietly. "The Council will never act on fear alone. They need proof, and the kind of proof you seek will cost lives." "Then lives will be lost," Zelith replied, "because someone will eventually ignore the warnings. Someone always does." The stranger smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "You are correct. In fact, it is already happening." Zelith's three eyes focused on him intently. "What do you mean?" "There is a smuggler named Rex, a Thun warlord who controls illegal trade routes through the outer sectors. He has heard rumors of Draconian treasure ships still in orbit around Earth, abandoned and ripe for salvaging. He believes the quarantine is just propaganda to keep scavengers away from valuable salvage. He cannot be that." "Foolish," Zelith said, but even as she spoke she knew better. Greed made fools of every species. He departed from Sigma Station 4 days ago with a fleet of 20 ships. If my calculations are correct, he will reach Earth's solar system in approximately 6 hours. Zelith felt her heart sink. "We have to warn him. Send a message. Turn his ships around." Stranger shook his head. "Rex does not accept transmissions from authorities. He assumes any contact is a trap or a trick to steal his prize. He will not listen." "Then what do? We wait," the stranger said softly. "We wait and we watch, and perhaps when Rex and his crew join the Draconians in whatever dark place claimed them, the Council will finally take your warning seriously." He turned and walked away, leaving Zelith alone in the empty chamber. She looked at Earth one more time, that beautiful blue world with its white clouds and green continents. It looked so peaceful, so innocent, but she knew better now. She had heard Thrax's final screams. She had studied the data. She understood that something ancient and terrible waited on that world. And in 6 hours, Rex and his crew would find out what that something was. Zelith deactivated the display and left the chamber. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere among them, a fleet of smugglers raced toward their doom, completely unaware that they were about to become the galaxy's next cautionary tale. The thought followed her as she walked through the empty corridors of the Council station. Soon, very soon, the silence would claim more victims. And perhaps then, finally, the galaxy would understand that some mysteries existed for a reason. Some doors were meant to stay closed, and some worlds were better left alone. But it would be too late for Rex and his 20 ships. It was already too late. The revelation. Captain Rex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fang, watching the stars streak past as his fleet traveled through hyperspace. He was a Thun, a species known for their brutal efficiency and complete lack of fear. His body was covered in thick armored plates that had turned dark red over his 60 years of life. His forearms ended clawed hands that had torn through countless enemies. 2 rows of teeth filled his mouth, each one sharp enough to pierce steel. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations with practice. Deficiency. They were all criminals, outlaws, pirates who had chosen to follow Rax because he made them rich and kept them alive. 20 ships made up his fleet, each one packed with salvage equipment and weapons. They were ready for anything, or so they believed. "Captain, we are approaching the Sol system," announced his navigator, a thin creature with multiple eyes and translucent skin dropping out of Hyperspace in 3 minutes, Rex grinned, showing all of his teeth. Finally, 50 years of treasure just waiting for someone brave enough to claim it. The fools in the council think their warnings will scare everyone away. They want the Draconian ships for themselves. His first officer, a scarred veteran named Krellel, stepped beside him. Sir, about the quarantine, the stories say that the entire armada vanished without a trace. Perhaps we should proceed with caution. Rex laughed. A sound like grinding metal. Stories, legends, propaganda. The Draconians probably destroyed themselves fighting over the spoils of Earth. Or maybe the humans had some hidden weapon that caught them by surprise. Either way, it happened 50 years ago. Whatever danger existed then is long gone now. The ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. The view screen showed the Sol spread out before them, 8 planets orbiting a yellow star. It looked completely ordinary, exactly like 1,000 other systems Rax had visited. Scanners active, reported the sensor officer, detecting multiple large objects in orbit around the third planet. Configurations match Draconian warship designs. Count, Captain, I am reading over 3,000 vessels in stable orbit. Rex's grin widened. 3,000, even if most are damaged, the salvage value will make us all wealthy beyond imagination. Set course for the third planet. All ships maintained formation. The fleet moved forward, passing the outer planets without incident. Jupiter's massive storm swirled below them. Saturn's rings glittered in the starlight. Everything seemed peaceful, normal, but as they crossed into the inner system, something changed. Captain, the sensor officer said, his voice uncertain, I am picking up strange readings, energy signatures that do not match any known technology. They are coming from Earth itself, from the oceans, probably just the planets. Natural electromagnetic field, Rex said dismissively. Keep us on course. They passed Mars, the red planet looking dead and lifeless. Earth grew larger on the viewscreen, a blue and green jewel hanging in the black of space, and around it, like a crown of corpses, floated the Draconian Armada. The ships were intact. That was the first thing Rex noticed. No damage, no signs of battle, no debris fields. They hung in perfect formation, as if they had simply stopped moving and never started again. This is wrong, Krellel muttered. Ships do not just stop like that. Where are the crews? Why did no one ever come back for these vessels? Because they are cowards, Rex said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Even he had to admit this was strange. Send a boarding team to the nearest Draconian ship. I want a full report on its condition. Transport shuttle detached from the iron Fang and flew toward one of the massive Draconian warships. Rex watched it dock successfully. The boarding team's voices came through the communication system. We are inside. Lights are still functioning. Atmosphere is breathable. No signs of the crew. Search the ship. Rax ordered. Find the bridge. Access their computers. I want to know what happened here. Minutes passed. The boarding team moved through the empty corridors, their camera feeds showing pristine hallways and abandoned stations. Everything looked normal, as if the crew had simply vanished mid-task. Then the screaming started. Something is here. I can see movement in the shadows. It is not. The transmission cut off abruptly. Boarding team report. Rex shouted, what is happening? Only static answered him. Get them back. Rex ordered. Send the shuttle to retrieve Them now, but the shuttle pilot's voice came through filled with panic. Sir, the boarding team is not responding to hails. The airlock is sealed from the inside. I cannot get to them. Rex felt something cold settle in his chest. Something he had not felt in decades. Fear, pull back, he said. Return to the Iron Fang. We will. Every alarm on the bridge started blaring at once. Captain. The sensor officer screamed. Energy spike from Earth. Massive readings coming from the Pacific Ocean. Something is rising from the water. Rex stared at the view screen as the oceans of Earth began to glow. A light blue and terrible spread across the water's surface, and then something emerged. It was vast, larger than any ship, larger than any creature Rex had ever seen. It did not have a solid form. Instead, it seemed to shift and change, existing in multiple dimensions at once. Parts of it were visible as tentacles or appendages, but other parts simply were not there, as if they existed in spaces that reality could not properly contain. What is that? Krello whispered. Before anyone could answer, a voice filled the bridge. It did not come from the communication system. It came from everywhere and nowhere, resonating inside their skulls. You were warned. The voice was old, impossibly old. It carried the weight of eons of civilizations that had risen and fallen before the galaxy's current species had even learned to make fire. 50 years ago they came. They sought to harm the small ones. We could not allow that. Rex found his voice, though it shook. What are you? What did you do to the Draconians? We are the Guardians. We have watched over this world since before your ancestors crawled from their oceans. The ones you call Draconians threatened our children. We protected them. Images flooded into Rex's mind. Not words, but pure information. He saw the truth of what had happened 50 years ago. The Draconian Armada had arrived in orbit, confident and powerful. They had begun their invasion, sending millions of soldiers to the surface, but as soon as the first warriors set foot on Earth, the Guardians had awakened. They were entities that existed partially outside normal space and time. They had been on Earth for billions of years, long before humans evolved, watching and waiting. When humanity arose, the Guardians had chosen to protect them, to nurture them, to ensure they developed without interference. The Draconians never stood a chance. The Guardians did not fight any conventional sense. They simply removed the threat. The Draconian soldiers had been displaced, shifted into dimensional spaces where they could exist but never escape, never die, never truly live. They were trapped in an eternal moment, conscious but powerless, aware but unable to act. Ships had been left as a warning, a monument to the price of threatening Earth, and no more warnings. The voice said, you will leave, you will tell your galaxy Earth is protected, Earth is forbidden. Any who come here with ill intent will join those who came before. Rix's pride wared with his terror. He was a conqueror, a warlord who had never retreated from anything. Clear's throat. But he was not a fool. Whatever these Guardians were, they were beyond his ability to fight or comprehend. We meant no harm, he said, hating how weak his voice sounded. We only came for salvage. For abandoned ships, there is nothing abandoned here. These vessels are monuments. These spaces are tombs. Leave now, never return. The presence withdrew, but not entirely. Rex could still feel it, watching, waiting to see what he would do. All ships, he said, Into the fleet communication system. Retreat full speed, get us out of this system now. His fleet turned and fled, their engines burning at maximum power. Behind them, Earth hung peaceful and beautiful, giving no sign of the ancient powers that dwelt beneath its oceans. As they reached the edge of the system, preparing to jump to hyperspace, Rex looked back one last time. The Draconian ship still floated there, a silent warning that the galaxy had ignored for 50 years. It would not ignore it anymore. 3 days later, Rex stood before the Galactic Council. The chamber was full this time. Word of his encounter had spread quickly, and suddenly everyone wanted to hear what he had to say. Ambassador Zelith stood beside him, her 3 eyes showing a mixture of vindication and sorrow. Tell them, she said quietly, tell them everything. Rex did. He held nothing back, describing the Guardians, the voice, the visions of what had happened to the Draconians. As he spoke, he watched the reactions of the delegates. Fear, disbelief, shock, all of it played across their various faces. When he finished, silence filled the chamber. Finally, the speaker addressed the assembly. The council will vote on Ambassador Zelith's proposal. Complete quarantine of the Sol system. No exceptions, all in favor this time. The vote was unanimous as the delegates filed out, discussing new protocols and spreading the word to their governments. Zelith approached Rex. Thank you for your honesty, she said. Rex nodded. Slowly, I lost 12 crew members on that Draconian ship. They are gone, trapped in whatever hell those Guardians create. For those who threaten Earth, I will carry that weight for the rest of my life. Perhaps, Zelith said softly, that is the point. The Guardians did not kill you. They let you escape so you could deliver their message. They want the galaxy to know that Earth is protected. Why? Rex asked. Why do these ancient beings care so much about one primitive species on one unremarkable world? Zelith looked at the holographic image of Earth that still floated in the chamber center. I have a theory. I think the humans do not even know the Guardians exist. I think these entities have protected humanity since the beginning, guiding them, shaping them, preparing them for something. The humans think they are alone in the universe, struggling to survive on their small world. They have no idea that they are the most protected species in the galaxy. Protected for what purpose? That, Zelith said, is a question I hope we live long enough to answer. Perhaps someday, when humanity is ready, the Guardians will reveal themselves. Perhaps humans will finally learn that they were never alone, that something ancient and powerful has been watching over them since the beginning of their history. Rex shuddered. I hope I am long dead before that day comes. I have seen enough mysteries for one lifetime. He turned and left the chamber, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. Zelith remained staring at Earth. Somewhere on that distant world, humans went about their daily lives. They worked, loved, fought, dreamed, completely unaware that their planet was the most forbidden place in the known galaxy, unaware that ancient beings dwelt in their oceans, protecting them from threats they would never see. And in the dark spaces between dimensions, 100 million Draconian warriors remained trapped, eternal prisoners, serving as a warning to anyone foolish enough to threaten humanity. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Earth was forbidden. Earth was protected, and the Guardians, patient and eternal, continued their watch. The mystery was solved, but the questions remained. What were the Guardians, why did they protect humanity, and what would happen when humans finally reached the stars themselves? Zelith did not know, but she suspected that when that day came, the galaxy would change forever. For now, though Earth remained a small blue world orbiting a yellow sun, peaceful and quiet, hiding secrets that the galaxy was not yet ready to understand. And that was exactly how the Guardians wanted it.